Thank you everyone for showing up in the morning so early. Today we're going to talk about the participation economy. More specifically, it's a retrospective from last year. Last year I came here and I wanted to tell everyone that you should vote when you participate in your protocol, when you buy tokens. You should expect that participation is going to create value for your project. We can say that we've been a bit disillusioned over the past year, so I think we have to be a bit more pragmatic. So the whole point is to introduce some kind of new concept that's going to allow us to push forward the ecosystem. So yeah, that's called the participation economy, and it's inspired from what Legion has built with the creators economy. So what have we built so far in crypto? Very briefly, we've done three things. The first one is that we've built blockchains. So it's just a database enabling trustless social interactions. On top of that, we have built DApps, decentralized applications. So these are decentralized central banks, decentralized lending protocols, centralized exchanges, and so forth. There's a lot of them, and they've been successful at scaling. They can work with thousands, even 100,000s of users. They can host and be custodian of billions of dollars. These are successful applications. And the last thing we have started developing over the past 2-3 years are governance systems. What's really interesting to take into account is that these systems haven't matured enough compared to the speed at which the protocols have matured. So these protocols are worth billions. They're the equivalent of very big companies. There's over $1 trillion of crypto assets today. But at the same time, we don't have good systems that enable us to scale and to be able to allow the stakeholders to coordinate correctly to manage these protocols efficiently. So this is the situation we are in today. To make a bit of sense, I wanted to explain a bit how protocols are supposed to work on the decision-making level. Just a small parenthesis, you have two styles of governance, basically the governance minimization and the full governance, the governance maximalism. My argument, and this can be a debate that we can have after, is that most projects cannot survive without governance because it's the upgradability option of the actual protocol. So how does this happen? It actually is a full circle, permanently. A contributor or a core member or anyone is going to notice that there's a new problem, there's an opportunity for the project. So it can be a bug, can be a need for change, an opportunity, anything. He is going to write a post, probably, and they're going to create a proposal. People are going to debate about it, whether or not it is relevant, whether or not it is the most efficient solution, whether or not the timing is right. Once the discussions are done, they vote, and then there's usually, ideally, automatic execution on and resource deployment after the vote is passed, basically. And this is the implementation. And because this is the magic of crypto, there's probably a new bug somewhere else. So you need to keep going full round. And if there's not, there's going to be a new opportunity because someone has an idea every day, which is great. So we have this kind of a governance circle that's very interesting that we're seeing. The question that we're asking ourselves at Paladin and that I think every DAO should ask is, how do we push this protocol to keep pushing forward the protocol? How do we create this positive life cycle in our organizations? I think that to understand that, we have to understand the challenges that are here in crypto. And they're mainly due to speculation, in the sense that crypto is mostly focused about short-term profit instead of long-term value creation. So today we're doing roughly $50 billion of value volume, and we're in a bear market. And the total crypto ecosystem is over 1,000 billion, so it's a $1 trillion market cap. It means that we're not in the little kids league anymore. We are a very, very big ecosystem, and we have to be aware of that. If you look at the crypto projects, the ones who are actually doing really well, not just in terms of community, in terms of revenue, in terms of traction, these are almost exclusively exchanges and lending protocols. So this is what works today in crypto. If you talk with a lot of the users today, they expect direct financial rewards. So they want to farm, they want the token, they want to earn their life, they want to make their generational wealth, right? And this is reflected on the voting, because you realize that we had this statistic last year. We realized it was even worse than we thought, because it's not just 95% of the tokens are not used to vote. It's also 99% of the users are not voting. So it means you have a very small core community that's actually participating and everyone else doesn't care. But the truth is that we are building right now systems to push for marketing to attract liquidity, because these are the needs that we as builders have put as priorities. That's a problem because we cannot expect people to participate if we redirect most of the incentive in attracting liquidity or in marketing or things like that. What we should push most of the incentives for is participation. Once you have product market fit, it's growth. So you have to recruit contributors, you have to make them go into it. So we're going to go back to the cycle I just showed before, and I just want to very briefly try to give a name to the people who contribute in these parts of the cycle. These are our own name. Any protocol, any person can give out a different classification of them. I think it's important at least to understand who are the people in your ecosystem. So very quickly, and by the way, anyone can be all four or any of them of this category. They're not like mutually exclusive. Usually someone who's going to see a problem is going to be a community member. So he wants value, he wants to keep pushing more for more things happening in the protocol. He's just going to notice it. Doesn't mean he's going to build the solution, right? The person who is going to build the solution, it's a contributor, because he's actually taking his time giving his time, giving his energy, giving his intelligence to the project. The people who are actually actively participating are going to be the governors. They're also going to be the one who votes. And then the person who executes are the operators. There are a lot of community members. It doesn't mean all of their opinions are valid, but that's the whole point of democracy. There's much less contributors, there's even less governors, and I would argue there's even less experimented and experienced operators. So the whole challenge today, when we're building a DAO, is identifying who in your community can become a contributor and who has the right skills, the right time to actually become a governor. So what's really interesting is that if you kind of look at these four different types of people, you're going to realize that they have different involvement in the protocol. So as we mentioned, a community member is most of the time lurking, so he's going to have very sporadic involvement. Sometimes just a Discord message. Oh, look, this thing in the interface is not working. Oh, I wonder why we're not farming CRV. Oh, I wonder if we couldn't do something like that. But it just stops there. A contributor is someone who is recurring. Yeah, you're also often going to find these guys like just saying GM in your Discord, for example, and these are people who just keep coming back. Something a bit more regular are going to be the governors, and then you're going to have the operators who should probably be part-time or full-time in your protocol. What's really interesting, and that's my personal opinion, where we want to get to, is that I think governor and operators should be paid because they are spending regular and recurrent time in your DAO, and they're basically doing a full-time job. The problem we have is that imagine the budget we're spending on liquidity mining if we spend just 10% of that in making the people participate in our protocol. So I think that's kind of the golden ratio we should get to. There's been a lot of talk about governance mining, but in a sense it's not about governance mining, it's probably just about paying people. But there's a lot of problem with that, because today most protocols, the resources they own the most is their own governance token. So how can you give your governance token to someone? He can't pay rent with them. The only option for him today is dumping the token. And if there's no liquidity, he can't dump it. So you actually have to provide incentives for the liquidity. So there's all these kind of problems that need to be solved if you want to get to a point where it's actually going to be efficient. So let's talk a bit about the future. What can we expect? Not just from us, but from a lot of projects that have been building things. As we mentioned just before, I'm just going to come back to the slide. All these four contributors, they have a different hierarchical importance, right, in terms of contribution, but they're all necessary. In a sense, I think that we have to learn that this hierarchy is necessary. So it's almost the move from a democracy to a republic, in the sense that you're accepting that there's going to be an expert committee representing you and your interests. And it's supposed to be backed by the actual liquid democracy that you have with token voting, right? So the token holders should always have a constant veto over decision, and there should be transparency reports for them to be aware of what's happening. Then you're going to have an executive council that has the strategical decisions. We're saying this a lot. It's usually what we call a community multi-sig, executive team, a Spartan council if you look at SNX. This decision-making organ, we're saying it like in almost any structure. And then after that, once you grow, you're going to have working groups. People managing your treasury, people managing your marketing, people managing the growth, communications, etc. And that's how DAO should organically grow. And if you look at all the big protocols today, they are going towards that direction. Maker has the core units group, Aave is slowly spinning out, they have BGD for development, they have Aave grounds for some kind of treasury around the community, they have the risk team. Jörn is doing the same thing with the Y team. So this is kind of the trajectory that we're seeing. And if you actually look at it, we're basically going back full circle to the traditional system that we had in our traditional organization. So yeah, that's why we wanted to talk about this, because what are we trying to do with Paladin is basically enable more persons to understand this game and to play the game of incentives to play it right. So for the past year and a half, we've been building influence market to understand what were the behaviors between different stakeholders and to generate revenue to basically finance the next part of what we want to build. We have released our governance token at the beginning of the year, and the idea is to transform this into a gateway to participate into the game of governance without any friction. So enable people to rally more governance power, get more incentives in different projects, etc., etc. In the end, all of this has to become a game for us where we extract the complexity for holders. Because if you have 10 governance tokens, you will not have the time to follow everything that's happening in all of these 10 protocols. So you have to make choices. This protocol interests me, I want to participate. This protocol doesn't, I have to delegate. And that's the gold standard we should get to. And this is a responsibility that wallets or things like that actually have to also play into account, because today the gateway for wallets, it's just like a custodian experience. It doesn't go further than that. So yeah, that's more or less it. We're basically growing into the step 2 of what we want to build now that we've finished the basis of what we wanted with influence markets. And yeah, we can't wait to show you more, and I hope that at least if you don't vote, you will delegate, or you will choose to basically come full-time in crypto. There's a lot of opportunity around governance. Thank you very much.